I put some sparkles on. That's all I could do.
I worked at the flower shop yesterday, so I'm covered in glitter. I don't know if you can see it.
Good time of the year.
If you like glitter.
I do.
I had a beard when I moved here, but I had to cut it off for a play.
Oh, that's the end of that.
That was the end of it, yeah.
Yeah, I had a beard too, and I cut it off when I became a nun. Yeah. Or maybe I grew a beard when I had a nun. I can't remember which it is.
I couldn't
was a
grow
long
much
time
of a
ago.
beard when I moved here.
Okay, I guess we're on live. Yes, we're live. So, good morning, everyone. I'll call the December 22nd Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting to order. And before we start the meeting, I will read the statements from our state statutes regarding having meetings during the pandemic. I would like to add that maybe in the future, I've been in some board meetings where they've said that this is not required anymore, just something to consider. That came up in our Arrowhead Regional Corrections meeting last week, just to pass that on. But going forward, I'll read 5 statements that are in statute regarding holding this meeting the way we're conducting it with Zoom today. Number 1, it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Walz in accordance with Minnesota Statutes Chapter 12. Number 2, we have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered at today's meeting. We have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged the public not to attend this meeting in person because of the COVID pandemic and have ensured that members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. 4, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have determined that it may be unfeasible for County Auditor Brady Powers, County Attorney Molly Hicken, County Administrator James Yorkey, and members of the Board of Commissioners to be physically present at the County Board room at the Cook County Courthouse. Number 5, all votes will be conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue will be identified and recorded. With that, would you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll go to making any adjustments to the agenda. Do we have any adjustments? Okay, with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Do we have support?
Second, Commissioner Mills.
Okay, thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim, aye. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Then we'll look at the public comment. Any public comments, Administrator Yorkey?
Mr. Chairman, we have received none for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda items. And was there any item there that someone would like, a commissioner would like to pull? Then I would entertain a motion to approve as a whole all the consent agenda items.
So moved, Commissioner Dukirk.
Thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Do we have support?
Commissioner Mills, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bershine's aye. Thank you. Well, we'll move on to Emergency Operations Command update, and Mike Keyport will not be with us this morning. He has something else scheduled. He indicated that he did not have any updates, but maybe Grace would be sharing something that's pertinent. But before I turn it over to Grace, I'd really like to recognize you, Grace, and all the people in your department for all the great work that you're doing. And it's been duly noticed. It was in, I think, Saturday's Minneapolis Star and Tribune, an article. And I know you talked about that on WTIP yesterday, but also had a chance to read it, and very appropriately really outlining what we have done and what you have done with your leadership. So what a wonderful thing you've done for our community as far as public health is concerned. So I graciously turn it over to Grace with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bersheim. It's my pleasure. And yeah, I was not expecting to be in the paper quite like that, but it was a nice article. And so thank you. So I'll get into the updates from the last 2 weeks. So since our last update on December 8th, our case count in Cook County has gone from 91 to 102. And in that same time, our testing positivity rate has gone from 4% to 6.3%. So that means the amount of testing that's happening in the community is not quite as well matched to the amount of COVID spreading in the community as it was 2 weeks ago. That could be in part because our local healthcare facility has gone from doing more frequent facility-wide testing to less frequent facility-wide testing. So there's a pretty significant volume of tests that is not there in the same way. But it's not a huge change. With the case rate, our 14-day case rate per 10,000 has risen above that 50 mark, which is the point at which the state mandates that all schools go to distance. And so there's a bit of a lag, but things have risen slightly since my last update. And when I say a bit of a lag, there's a bit of a lag in reporting. So this is kind of reporting through that first week of December. Since the first week in December, actually, from my perspective, I think the rate that we've seen new cases come in has begun to decrease somewhat, which is very welcome. It's a great change. We didn't see that spike in cases we were worried about after Thanksgiving, which I think is a sign that the community really took this seriously and took that advice to celebrate with one's own household very seriously. So unfortunately, we still have that same advice for the upcoming Christmas and New Year's holidays, that the safest way to celebrate is with the people you live with. So we don't recommend gathering with others outside one's immediate household this year, given the risk of spreading the virus at this point in time. On to kind of more of response type updates with case investigation contact tracing. Our two newest volunteers through Minnesota Responds are Teresa Borak and Dwayne Hasegawa. They're both fully trained in at this point, and now they're at the point of shadowing our more experienced staff on contact tracing. And we've actually had the welcome issue of not having a whole ton of cases to shadow on. So they're awaiting that opportunity, and I'm sure it will come. In the world of tests, we did have test distribution events that happened last week throughout the county. So we had one at Lockport Market in Lutsen, one at the Grand Portage Community Center, one at the Grand Marais Community Center, and then on the Gunflint Trail, we had 3 smaller events at all of the fire halls along the Gunflint Trail. And the test they were the mail-in saliva test kits that were given to us by the state EOC, and they went very, very quickly. So we had 200 tests. They all are gone. Some of them were gone. We divided them up 50 for each site. Some of them were gone within the first half hour. So Jim Wienanen has been the one we've been forwarding the emails and calls that have come in requesting the test kits to him, and he's been helping people find where to request those test kits through the mail and saliva program. I think that service is available, but you have to kind of know where to find it on the Department of Health website. So he's been doing a fantastic job of helping people navigate to that site so that they can actually request their kit. It's not the best option for everyone. You do need a certain degree of tech savvy to upload your ID, a photo of your ID, and walk through the steps, but it's a great option for a number of community members, and it's available at no cost. So, we had to put these events together really quickly. I think we learned some things. If we ever have the opportunity to do similar events in the future, we would probably not pair them with food distributions for AEOA. They were very, very busy events, and it was great because some people could go pick up food and a test kit, which was kind of our goal. But on the other hand, there were people waiting quite a while in those sites, and we did run out of the test kits. So I think in the future, we would not pair the two. There's just too much activity. So on to vaccination news. We do have exciting news on that front, which I'm very happy to report on. So today is actually going to be the day when the first Cook County resident will be able to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine at North Shore Health, they're actually doing the first vaccination events today for healthcare workers, which is fantastic news. So both of the COVID-19 vaccines through Pfizer and Moderna did receive emergency use authorization through the FDA. So the Pfizer vaccine was the first to come, and the Moderna vaccine will be here as soon as next week. And so that will be the vaccine that our long-term care residents are able to receive, as well as one of the next groups in line is our EMSB certified responders that are not affiliated with hospitals. So those are some of the next groups that will be coming up to receive the vaccine. So I'm working very closely with Sawtooth Mountain Clinic on vaccination planning, both for people who are receiving vaccine in the clinic and also in the nearest future to do events out in the community. Probably at first they'll be associated with like a specific employer, since we receive direction from the state and federal government on what priority groups come in what order. So based on that direction, we'll work with the clinic to try to reach out to those groups and let them know that they're able to receive the vaccine, and then help plan accordingly so they can set up appointments to access it. Within public health, another thing that we're doing is putting together kind of a general presentation on the COVID-19 vaccine. I know that people have questions about the vaccine. How well does it work? How safe is it? What do we know? What do we not know? And so the idea behind putting together a presentation is to have a tool that we can use as we're doing outreach to these different groups to answer those questions, and then give people a chance to ask any other questions they have. And the ultimate goal is to help people feel more comfortable receiving the vaccine. So that's something that we're working on within public health. And we're also kind of brainstorming what some other good community engagement and education activities will be in the coming weeks and months. So that's kind of the short of it with the vaccine planning. That's becoming a huge focus for us in public health, and it's really exciting news. So that's it for my updates. Happy to take questions.
Okay, I think it's still, instead of doing a roll call, I can see everyone real well today. And so just raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question or comment. Start with Heidi. Go
Thanks,
ahead,
Myron.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Thanks, Grace, for the updates. And had my COVID test yesterday, so we have the hospital numbers that'll go up and change our positivity rate again. It's interesting how that works. And thank you for all of your work. And it's always nice when you end up in the Star Tribune on a positive note. So it's been great working with you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Jenny, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Bersheim. Yes, Grace, that was a really good article in the Sunday paper. Actually, we had two articles, one on our health situation and one on our Cook County newspaper. So we really made the Tribune on Sunday. There again, thank you for all that you've done this year. And I know you'll continue as we all have to continue into the new year. I did hear this morning that the next level of vaccines would go to, like you said, responders, EMTs, and people 75 years and older. So I'm not sure if that's nationwide or if it's up to the governors to decide what the next tier is going to be.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So they've broken it down into phases, and then they've broken the phases down into smaller subphases.
Yeah, right.
What it looks like for me is that in every week or two, I think this week they've taken a break because of the holiday, but the state will send me an email and say, okay, this is the next group, and go ahead and figure out how much of the vaccine you'll need for this group, and then I get back to them afterwards. So I know that people 75 and older are in the first phase, but they're not in the first sub phases. So I'm not sure exactly when that group's time will come, but I know it's somewhat close. I think they'll finish the healthcare group gets first, it's like hospital and people with more direct patient care, and then it moves to other first responders, and then it moves to like assisted living facilities, and also other medical professionals like people in dialysis centers and urgent care centers. And so going through the healthcare workers, I mean, for us locally, it's not quite the same as it might be in a more populated area. Most of the folks in the medical community are covered through the hospital or the clinic, and they're right first in line, but there's a couple other subgroups. And then so after that, I believe it's what they're calling like a subset of mission critical workers. And then after that, I think it moves into, I'm not sure how if it's gonna be, like I've heard of like various age cutoffs and also specific health conditions. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I'm sure that at some point I will get a Monday morning email from the Minnesota Department of Health saying, okay, this is the next group
This
to
is
plan
it,
for.
yeah.
So I'll keep you posted, but I don't have any firm dates, unfortunately. It all kind of changes on a day-to-day.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Grace. I don't I don't know if it's a direct question, but I understand the vaccines are in two phases, a two-part vaccine rather. And then even after that second part, do we really know if someone can be a carrier or, I think it's very exciting and the efficacy of the vaccine is excellent. But I want to make sure that the public and we all are still aware of the risks and still doing social distancing and taking the adequate precautions, and just got to keep our eye on the ball here, and the light is there, and if we can get there, it's so wonderful. But I'm concerned that with the focus on getting the vaccine out there, that we want to make sure our other messaging is still strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, there's a few things that are going to be challenging about vaccination. And you're right, we don't know so the 90 to 95% efficacy is a reduction of severe disease. So having symptoms of COVID-19 and getting sick, feeling sick, but they don't know if you can still be a carrier and transmit the disease to others. That's one thing that we're going to be learning in real time. The other piece that is still unknown is how long the vaccines will offer protection. And that's just because they've developed these vaccines over the past several months, and so until they've been out there for a longer period of time, they're not gonna be able to know that. They do have, along with the emergency use authorization and the vaccines, the CDC put out something called V-Safe, and it's an app that you can, when you get the vaccine, you can download it and it checks in with you every day to see how you're feeling. And so it's a self-report tool. It's another way for them to kind of check as they're going how people are feeling after getting the vaccine, aside from, reporting back to the clinic. And it also reminds you to go back for your second dose. And that's going to be a huge focus of our campaign locally as well. I mean, anyone who's had a multi-dose vaccine or had children who are due for routine vaccinations knows it's tricky to get back at the right interval for that second vaccine. So the clinic and public health have been talking quite a bit about how do we encourage that? How do we make sure people are coming back for that second dose so that the vaccine works better for longer for people who receive it? And that's going to be a huge effort on the part of the community to try to make sure people are getting their second dose at the recommended time. So.
Commissioner Mills, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Grace. That's very helpful. And do we have, and this is probably out of your realm at this point, but do we have any bigger picture supply idea? It's excellent that we're getting plans for the first steps, but beyond that, and I know we don't have a lot of timeline figured out beyond that, but do we have a sense of the bigger picture supply?
At this point, it's all going through the federal system. So the government has a federal vaccine distribution system, and I'm not sure how long it's going to continue to go through that system and how long it's going to be kind of up to the State Department of Health to figure out how to manage a really set amount of vaccine. I think it's going to be several months before it really opens up, but that's just an educated guess on my part. I haven't heard definitively how long it's going to be. But I think for now, I'm anticipating it'll be similar to what happened with the count for the volunteer first responders, where it's literally me trying to come up with an educated guess for the number of people who fall into a category, and then doing outreach to the people in that category to let them know that they're eligible to receive the vaccine if they choose. So I think it's going to be that way for a while. Even if we open it to, say a group over a certain age or with a certain medical condition, I think we'll have to do some kind of best estimate planning. The other piece that's tricky is both the vaccines, Moderna less so than Pfizer, but they both have very specific storage and handling requirements. So right now, part of the training for the clinical staff is to make sure everyone's well aware of that and that we're using the vaccine that we receive to the maximum and not making sure that nothing is falling through the cracks, so that we're kind of treating the precious vaccine as well as we can and getting it to as many people as we can. So yeah, I don't have a great answer to your question, but that's all I know.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I am very grateful for all your work. Thank you so much, and your leadership. And I'm very proud to support you in your efforts, and feel very strongly we need to do all the more in the next year. So thank you.
Okay, anything else? My last comments are, Grace, we've had some dark spots during this pandemic. We've had some bright spots, but you and your staff have been a shining star. Mm-hmm. So appropriate to the year. It's been an honor to work with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you too, and I really appreciate all your support in our response efforts. So thank you.
Thanks again. Okay, we'll go on to the MIS, a part of our agenda. And the first item there is pictometry contracts. And I don't see Rena right now, but I know that Kyle Oberg is going to be working. Oh, there you are. You're back. I missed you. Okay. Rena, we'll turn it over to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, commissioners. So this is, I'm actually really excited about this item. As you know, pictometry and our aerial imagery is a really important part of our GIS platform, because what that allows people to do, I mean, as citizens, we can go in and find our own house and look at our property from an aerial view in a great deal of detail. But beyond that, it's very important for several of our departments, for our assessors being able to do some work remotely, for our land services people being able to measure things, look at wetlands, for our emergency responders and our emergency management. These are also tools that are integrated into things that they do. In addition to that, it's also used by a lot of our other public sector partners in the area. The U.S. Forest Service, as you know, last time went in with us. They use it for managing timber. They can go in and actually look at the height of trees and measure that pretty accurately in areas that are difficult to get into. Grand Portage also has been using it, Arrowhead Electric, to look at their lines and areas where, you know, to get an idea of what's going on, the city of Grand Marais. So, you know, it's very valuable to the way we do our business. It saves us a lot of time, which of course saves us money and provides a good service. Last time, you know, but it's expensive. It costs, last time cost over $300,000 to update it. And we were really on the outside edge of when you should update it. It had been 6 years, and you really need to do this probably for effectiveness every 3 years. And so every 3 years, it would be pretty hard to come up with that kind of money, or to get your partners to come up with that kind of money. So right after we did it, updated in 2018, went on our project list, figure out a funding strategy for how you do this going forward. Last time we put it in bonding, which you know, works, and it was effective for us, but it's not an ideal solution necessarily going forward. Finding some sort of dedicated money that we know it can be there was kind of the objective. Do we save a little every year, or, you know, make it part of the fund balance, or what do we do? So this idea, I think, is a very good solution to operationalizing pictometry. Basically what we're doing is, and Kyle's on, and Kyle is gonna be able to answer your specific questions and correct anything that I got loosely wrong here. But we roughly divided the county into 4 sections that mirror the quintiles. There's 4 of them instead of 5 of them, but it kind of goes across the county from west to east. And so what the idea is that the year you're going to start a quintile, like on the west end, you would do the pictometry first for that one. So it would, the pictometry would be the most up-to-date pictometry, so that the assessors, when they're doing their work, they have really good detail before they go out into the field, or even after, to do follow-up. And then it would follow each year. You would do the next one and the next one, the next one. So we pared down the areas that needed to be done to the areas that the county is most interested in. And along our corridors, the highway corridors, and the properties, private properties are mostly in there. And then what we've done is we said, this is the area we're going to be doing. And we reached out to our partners and said, if you want to be involved in this, you can chip in this year. Somebody like the Forest Service may or may not want to be involved every year, because, you know, there's not as much change in a wilderness area as there is in property development. So they may skip a few years, or they, you know, if they have extra funding, they may choose to do it. So in this way, over a period of a 5-year period, we will do 1/4 of the county each of the 4 years. We'll take a year off, and then we will start the whole process over again. And again, it parallels that assessment process. The funding stream for this will be the recorder's unallocated funds. Those funds are collected as part of property transactions when people buy, sell, change their mortgages. And it's money that can't be used any other way than to support technology, largely for the real estate market. So this is really a perfect use for that money. And it replenishes itself kind of constantly. And like I said, it can't be used for anything else. So we're not adding anything to a bond, or we're not adding anything to the levy. This is just using money that's there for this kind of intended purpose. And what I really like about it is the reason that money exists is because there's development or change in the real estate market. And so Pictometry needs to be updated to capture that. So it's really a great fit. There are two agreements here today that I'm asking you to approve. First one is to approve the agreement with Pictometry International to provide 4 annual installments of imagery. The 2021 project will cost $46,652.50. And then the second agreement is a cost share agreement with Arrowhead Electric for the 2021 imagery process, and they will contribute $9,678.75 to that project. So the net cost for us to do a quarter of the county is $36,973.75. And as I mentioned, there's more than adequate funds for that in the recorder's unallocated funds. So with that, I am going to ask Kyle if he has anything he'd like to add, or if you all have questions for him. Still there, Kyle? Yep, there you go.
Yep, I'm here. No, that was a great overview, Rena. I think you provided, just some really good context for this moving forward. We've recognized this is a staple data set, as you said, for so many departments and public users and other partner agencies, that we really needed to get a grip on operationalizing this. And I really feel strongly, as Rena does, about this plan moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Bob and Rena. So let's just open it up for any questions about either one of these. There'll be 2 different motions, but let's open it up for any comments or questions, and then we'll take them separately as different motions. Any questions or comments? Please raise your hand. And okay, Commissioner Starley.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's a win-win. I think it's brilliant to divide it into different sections. The cost sharing is great. It's just something that in all areas is contributing to the assessor's office and Arrowhead and all of that. So I think it's a great move. Thank you, Rena and staff on that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rena, and thank you, Kyle, for your work on this too. It's a really smart move, and I think you answered most of my questions. I might ask them just so it's very clear for the public, but I did have a new question. Why did we not divide it into 5 instead of 4 sections?
I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, no, I worked with Bob Thompson, County Assessor, recognizing their extensive use of this, and when we talked about the quintile cycle, we looked at ways we could divide the county up into 5 different areas, and it just so happens that the city of Grand Marais is its own quintile area, and it's both too small in terms of Pictometry's requirements to cover in its own flight, and it's also nested within their other quintile area, referred to as the greater Grand Marais area, and so it's captured in that flight.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes total sense. And so the questions that were already answered, but I'll just ask for everyone's sake, is: are we buying any machines?
I have it right here in my office. It's over. It's a secret though, so I can't show you. I'm just kidding.
So that's a no. We're not buying any machines.
No machines.
And then the recorder fees will cover this service sustainably, and the levy will not be affected. Just to emphasize that.
We believe so. I think at least for quite some time, without any help, it should allow this to go forward. And you know, as other partners come in and go, they will, excuse me, help reduce the cost, our costs. Like this year, almost $10,000 from Arrowhead. And other years, we'll have other partners that will join in. Arrowhead will probably be a regular contributor, I would think. But depending on where we are, if we're up the Gunflint Trail, Forest Service or the DNR might join in. So I think it's pretty solid for the foreseeable future.
Well,
Okay,
thank
any
you.
other questions or comments?
Excellent work there.
Excuse me. It's very sustainable. I think it's tied to a funding source that's got a pretty good future for, providing the funds, and it's correlated to the growth in the area, which is a very good thing for, I think, everyone, taxpayers, and for the service delivery. So with that, I think we're ready to move on to entertaining a motion for the first agreement is the Pictometry International with the 4 annual installments of imagery at a cost of $46,000 and $652.50.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Second.
Starley support.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim passes unanimously. And we'll go on to the cost share agreement with Arrowhead Electric for 2021. And this will be a cost share of their contribution of $9,678.75. I'd entertain a motion to move.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Support.
Commissioner Mills, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim is aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you both very much for all your work and great service to our community on these projects.
Thank you, Commissioners. And just to let you know that flight will take place this spring in that brief window between when the snow is melted and the leaves are on. That's the way it works.
Okay.
So, we'll look forward to new imagery for the West End. Thank you for
Please send out a thank you to Elon Musk for doing that for us. That's really nice of him.
Okay, we'll move on to the Gunflint Tower AT&T lease, and we also have Rowan with us who works with towers. Rena, would you like to make any comments before we go to Rowan with this, or?
Sure. I'll just make a few comments about what the actual proposal is and give you some context for it, and then Rowan can fill in those details. So as you know, for a long time, AT&T has been interested in cell service at the end of the Gunflint Trail. And with FirstNet cell service, and FirstNet's that public safety broadband service that's been used by public safety. Our sheriff's department uses it in their squad cars. Most of our emergency responders carry some sort of FirstNet device, and that FirstNet service for public responders gives them priority and preemption of service. So if it's a really busy weekend and there's lots of people on their cell phones, our public safety people have priority. They get more bandwidth than everybody else. They get what they need first. So this is that's one point to note. Another point to note is that a few years ago, the FCC changed their rules and said, you know what, local governments, you can't deny a request for cell service. You have to allow that to go forward. So when we looked at the tower ordinance a few years ago, we tried to say, okay, if we can't limit it, then how do we manage it so that we can meet our basic ideals that we've kind of set forth in our radio communication program of how do we maximize our services and minimize the impacts, and specifically minimize the impacts of tower proliferation within the county and this beautiful wilderness that we have. So there basically is a process that when there's a request for cell service that these companies have to go through. And the first one is they have to, if possible, co-locate on an existing tower. The tower at Gunflint Lake was a tower that the county inherited as a result of some grants, I think after a forest fire. That tower has a lot of tenants on it. And most of them are public safety related, you know, like Armor Radio and the Border Patrol and US Forest Service and DNR, those sorts of organizations. WTIP is also on there, which also is part of our emergency management service, because they can alert people when there's something, you know, an evacuation or any other kind of a storm coming. But that tower is very full and it's not a heavy duty tower. So when what we ask a requester to do is to do a couple of different studies to see if they can locate what they're asking to on that equipment, a structural and a intermod study, which looks at all the different signals. In this case, it failed. And we suspect that it would because of how crowded that tower is. So the next option is for somebody to build a tower, but to build it within that tower district. That became a tower district when we had land exchange. We had the ability to make it a tower district. We kind of said that's what we want it to be, but we couldn't really do that till the land exchange happened. So what that does is it says, okay, if you have to build a tower, build one right next to where there's already a tower, where there's already a road in and there's already, you know, fiber and electrical. So you're not tearing up every hillside all around the area, and you're protecting most of the view shed. It's already a tower there. Now there's 2 towers there. But when you look everywhere else, there's not a tower. If you go other places, everywhere you look, there's a tower on every side of the road. So that was the choice that was where we went next with this. So we knew there needed to be another tower. This particular agreement asked AT&T to build that tower and build it to a certain level of specs that will hold 3 cell service providers, which is what there are in the universe. Basically, there's AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, so that there won't have to be any more towers probably for the foreseeable future. And what we've asked AT&T to do is build it to that spec and then give it to us, actually sell it to us. And they're selling it to us through rent abatement. It's kind of similar to what we have with Verizon over Grand Marais. So for, I don't know, it's probably about 15 years, they will pay half of their rent every month. And at the end of that time, you know, the tower will be paid back to them. But in the meantime, we're still getting revenue for it. And if Verizon comes along and wants to put up cell service, we will be the ones that receive that revenue as well. So this is another, I think, big win-win-win. We're really managing and significantly limiting tower proliferation in that area, providing a service not only for citizens, but also on the public safety realm. And by the way, that also includes our highway department. The highway patrol uses Armor. Who else uses it? Let's see, school buses. It's really widely used by a variety of people that deliver services up here. So we're increasing that service where there hasn't been any for all of those public safety people. And we're doing it in a way that really limits the impact, I think, on the area, the wilderness area. This tower will also be under 200 feet tall, which means it won't be lit at night. So it won't have an impact on the night sky. And it's a 25-year lease. that has a 2% escalator every year. So that the amount that we get goes up every year. Have I covered everything, Roland?
I think you have. That's a very good summary. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Dukert, go ahead.
Rena, this is your strong point. The last item that we had and this item, your strong point is project management and limiting the negative impact, not only on the county, but on the citizens, and finding balance with the people that want to work with us and come into our community. So thank you very much. Rowan, I don't think the community has any idea the amount of time and hours that you put in to keep communications going, to make sure the towers are snow and ice free and not going to tip over and are structurally sound and structurally safe. And I know that you take emails and phone calls all the time from me when I click the wrong button on my radio. I know I'm not the only one that does it. And so I'm sure that you have lots of things that you're doing. I have no idea how you've done it during the pandemic. Obviously, I haven't pushed the wrong button in a while and haven't had to come in and beg for your help. I know that there are members on the Gunflint Trail that are adamantly opposed to cell service because they think it will destroy the wilderness. And this is a #1 priority for safety. And I know you're not going to believe me because you just think it's going to destroy the wilderness. But there are people that come to enjoy our wilderness, as you all know, completely unprepared and oblivious to what it means to be in the woods. And this is going to make their experience safer, because we want everyone that comes to Cook County to leave Cook County alive. And sorry, those are strong words, but it is a reality. And, you know, you think what can happen. We've seen the gamut. We've seen someone almost lose their life over a bee sting. And imagine being 55 miles from an EpiPen. So it's really important. And, you know, thinking about the bee sting that actually happened and the fact that we had an ambulance responding and people trying to get to the hospital and passing each other and trying to make that connection. And if we had a better way to communicate besides armor, and the Forest Service is still not on armor. So for them to have a cell phone to pick up and call when they can't get connection with us, this is huge. So thank you, Rena. Thank you, Rowan.
Thank you, Commissioner Dukert. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, echoing Heidi's sentiments and just how well planned out that this is, and how you've considered all the angles as far as impact and financial sustainability. And just thank you for all the hours of work that you've put into it and developing a really solid plan.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions, comments? We'll go to Commissioner Starley, then to Administrator Yorkie.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. To Rena and Rowan and everybody, you've brought us through many years of good tower use, and now we have to go a little bit further with replacing a tower, but that's the important thing about keeping track of everything. And so appreciate all your efforts in that, especially going into the new year, because who knows how important all these are going to be in the future. And so thank you again.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Administrator?
Yes, I just wanted to echo the praise that I've heard just now. We are so fortunate to have such a great MIS department working at such a high level across the whole team. Rena, Rowan, Kyle and Kirk and Keishan, you guys just do the best work, and we are so lucky to have you working for the organization, providing these services that especially now are so vital. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I certainly would like to agree with all the comments made. Thank you so much, Rena and Rowan and Kyle and everyone in that department for their work. Any other comments or questions?
I would just like to make one more comment there, so that people, I think we've mentioned this before, but any revenues that we get off of these towers go to help defray the cost of maintaining the towers, tower replacement, repairs on towers, structural improvements. And by doing this, and we're locking up a fair amount of revenue and contracts, on 25-year periods of time. It allows us, we have a couple of towers that are over 50 years old that need to be replaced. The revenues that we have will allow us probably to bond to do that and to pay that bond payment out of those revenues rather than have it impact the levy. So, it's a, besides being a low impact on the environment, it's also a low impact on the budget plan and on the impact on taxpayers in this county, while still providing and making sure our infrastructure for public safety communication works. So it's there's multiple dimensions to this. So it's pretty exciting. I'm always excited to talk about it. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion to.
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Dukirk, support.
Commissioner Mills, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Roll call vote. Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Sorry for interrupting you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just so excited. With that, aye.
Okay. Commissioner Bersheim's aye passes unanimously. Again, thank you, Rena and Rowan, for your work. Great
Thanks,
service.
commissioners. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to the auditor part of our agenda items. And we'll start with the Saginaw Lake parking lot and boat landing special use permit. Auditor Powers, turn it over to you.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, good morning. This is a request to approve a special use permit to use the Saginaw Lake parking lot owned by the Forest Service. It's a special use permit. The last one was a 3-year permit, which expired in 2019. And they've taken some extra time, the Forest Service has, to put together this new permit, which is a 5-year permit. And the main reason I'm bringing it to you here rather than on a board agenda is I think it's new to most of the board members. And so you can be familiar with this process. So the county currently has 2 parking lots and boat landings on Saginaw. Just to give a little background, we've had those for many, many years. One of the lots is owned by the county. It's a 5-acre parcel we got in trade with the Forest Service some years ago. And then the other is permitted by the Forest Service, and it's more of an overflow lot. The one we own is the larger lot. The purpose of these lots is they're boat landings to provide access to residents, tourists, outfitters, and guides for fishing and other recreational activities. I think it's especially important because it is a motor boat access to Saginaw Lake, which allows motors in some parts of it. And it seems to be especially popular in the spring during the opening of fishing and early in the summer. So the county is allowed to charge and collect fees for the operation of the Forest Service landing, and we do charge the same fees for the county landing. So for the last several years, the county has contracted with Voyager Canoe Outfitters to manage the parking and the fee collection and to do most of the maintenance of the sites. Other than our staff, Brian Silence, they also travel up there to cut weeds and take care of things like that. Prior to Voyager contract, the county actually had a hired resident who managed the lots for us. Now, the financial implications are there is a permit fee for this 5-year period of $1,611 and an annual land use fee of $295 a year for 5 years. The county averages a net cash positive flow of $3,000 to $4,000 a year. Currently, we have a balance in that fund of about $75,000. We've used this fund over the years for maintenance and upgrade of these 2 landings, as well as any other landings in the county. The Clearwater regular maintenance, for example, comes out of this fee, and the recent, some of the upgrade and work on that site also came from this fund. So with that, I'll just ask for any questions. What's included is the permit itself and then a 5-year operating plan. And these are pretty similar to the last 3 years with very few changes, actually.
Okay, thank you. Brady, any questions or comments before we take action on this? Okay, with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve a special use permit and an operating plan for the Saginaw Lake parking lot and boat landing.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Support?
Storley, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Bershheim? Aye, passes unanimously. Moving on to the second one under auditor agenda items, approved name change of the Cook County Revolving Loan Fund. Brady, I'll turn that over to you.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Revolving Loan Fund Committee met on December 9th, and part of the reason for the meeting, the main part of the reason for the meeting, is that our longtime chairman of that committee and member of that committee, Hal Greenwood, had passed away in November 19th, actually. The committee had pretty strong feeling that they would like to do something to honor his work on the Revolving Loan Fund Committee, as well as his service on many other governmental activities in the county, including the EDA, Planning, City Council Planning Committee. And so that committee voted unanimously to recommend to the county board that the Revolving Loan Fund be renamed as the Hal Greenwood Cook County Revolving Loan Fund. There's attached here a resolution which goes into some of the history and of Hal's involvement with the creation of this fund in Cook County and his service here and in other areas. If you like, I'd be happy to read that resolution.
Sure, go ahead.
So the Cook County Board of Commissioners, with assistance, County Auditor, and Cook County Revolving Loan Fund Committee, under guidelines designed pursuant to Chapter 116J of Minnesota statute, administers the funding of loans to aid business startups, expansions, and job retention since 1998 through the Cook County Revolving Loan Fund. The Cook County Revolving Loan Fund, using seed money originally issued by the state of Minnesota and no county contributions to date, has issued upwards of 100 loans of approximately $6 million cumulatively, helping establish and maintain many businesses in the community and the jobs they create, including Hedstrom Lumber, Bucks Hardware, Lutsen Mountains, the Village Inn, now Caribou Highlands, the Crooked Spoon, Gunflint Lodge, Poplar House, Cedar Grove Veterinary Clinic, and many, many others unnamed here, of all sizes, profit, nonprofit, Whereas Hal Greenwood is said to have been a crucial influence at the Capitol to facilitate the original grants from the state to Cook County to establish the Cook County Revolving Loan Fund. He served on the Revolving Loan Fund Committee continuously for decades as chair for many years and contributed to the work of the committee through much of 2020. Whereas during his decades of service to the community in Grand Marais and Cook County, Hal Greenwood also was a longtime chair of the Planning and Zoning and Public Utilities Commissions for the city of Grand Marais, led the Cook County School Education Foundation, and founded the Cook County Chamber of Commerce. He worked behind the scenes to find financial support for countless projects in Cook County that benefit the public. And whereas in memoriam of Hal Greenwood's life, subsequent to his passing on November 19th, 2020, and to honor and respect his many contributions to the Cook County community, and especially the great work of the Cook County Revolving Loan Fund, the Cook County Revolving Loan Fund Committee has recommended that the County Board of Commissioners rename the Revolving Loan Fund the Hal Greenwood Cook County Revolving Loan Fund. And now therefore be it resolved that the Cook County Board of Commissioners do hereby rename the Revolving Loan Fund the Hal Greenwood Cook County Revolving Loan Fund.
Okay,
Open it to questions.
sure. Let's open it up for questions, comments. Please raise your hand and if you have any. Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Brady, for presenting this to us. I spoke with a couple members of the Revolving Loan Fund, and they make a very, very excellent case for a very strong community member here who passed away, and I want to do everything we can to respect his work and his memory, and respect his family as well. One of the questions I had is, and this is more just, I guess, with administration staff, was just around how, what the procedure, what the policy is for naming either public funds, institutions, or property. And it became pretty clear immediately that we don't have a policy or procedure. And that makes me uncomfortable. Just in recent memory, there have been other public property namings that have, I guess, caused hurt or misunderstandings, and just when we're talking about bigger picture things like, say, social justice and social equity, I just want to make sure that when we are naming something like this for someone like Hal, who has had a huge influence, that we're doing it with a good lens. And so until we have a good policy or procedure in place, I think on this and develop that, and I think it would do all the more to strengthen anything that we do name in memory of somebody, and just wanted to see if other commissioners can see where I'm coming from there, or if my concerns are unfounded or whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Commissioner Dukert, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, I agree with you. This is where it sucks being a commissioner, because, if one of us was the mayor, we can make a proclamation and have Hal Greenwood Day. The only name change I remember coming forward during my time was a small island in my district, which kind of, I think, originated through a DNR request because it's on a body of water or something, but I know it took the guy years and years to get this to go through. And there has been confusion in the past. There's been a request for a name request on something else to do with the county, and there have been multiple responses to that request, and it hasn't come forward yet. And one of the responses was that a donation of $50,000 should be made. So clearly we don't have a defined way to do this. And so I think that that's our first step and an application process. And it's unfortunate that we don't have that in place, because I know this might bring some sadness to the family, but you know, I'm the optimist here, and I always look at the positive side. And the family was just here, obviously, because Hal passed away. And wouldn't it be a great thing that this isn't done during our final levy discussion, and instead it's done after COVID, when the family can be part of this? You know, I think about the ribbon cuttings at the Y and the ribbon cutting out on Isle Royal and the celebration. And not that you guys aren't all wonderful celebratory people, but I'm just looking at our Zoom screen and going, this is not the way I would like to celebrate Hal, with just us making this decision. I would like for his daughter and grandchildren and grandpuppies to be involved in this, and for it to be more than this. I mean, this just, you know, I know the revolving loan fund put a lot of time and thought into this and held a special meeting for it, but Hal deserves more. So I'd like the board to table this and define a process and make sure it's clear. And then when they do it, to not just be on an agenda for a meeting, but to have the family present if you decide to do it. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Commissioner Storley, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, getting back to Commissioner Mills' comment, I think probably now in the future, we should look at some guidelines. I've not, during my tenure, I've not been aware of much of anything as far as accepting a request for a name change or a street change or a lake change or whatever. But I think that, yeah, I think in the future we need to think about that. And it's been brought to my attention now because of this request. I don't particularly see any reason to postpone this, because we don't know where we're going to go with COVID. We could be 2 years out yet. We don't know. But the request today is to, you know, have the name to include Hal Greenwood. So I guess I would like just to move forward today with the idea that his family will be notified somehow, figure that out, and then move forward, as Dave said, to think about how we do this in the future.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Storley. Well, I guess I will comment at this time too. I think that being on the revolving loan fund and actually bringing this forward to the agenda, at least proposing it to be discussed today and its merits, I sort of agree with Jenny Storley on this, Commissioner Storley. I also know that by procedure and protocols, and it's not quite that clear with Robert Rules of Orders, but we don't have those adopted anyway, but there is, you know, always the ability to table a motion, but it does need to be done by a motion and a second, and then it would need to pass. And I know that that is an option here, but I guess if looking at the situation with my involvement in this and my association with Hal, I don't see in my mind, and based upon my experience, any reason why policy would preclude Hal Greenwood being named. It seems very appropriate to the committee itself, very significant, and I think that he's done a lot in the community, but specifically with this committee in its inception and as a chair. And I don't see anything that would cause me to think that that's not appropriate to do. By the same token, the commissioners can certainly appoint a committee or some kind of process in which to establish name rights. So I would say that I support Commissioner Starley and what she has stated. So with that, more discussion. Heidi, excuse me, Commissioner Dukirk, you had your hand up, and then we'll go to Commissioner Mills.
I agree with both you, Mr. Chairman, and with Ginny that this seems like a really good thing to do, and it's really appropriate and it's timely. And it's been out to the public for 4 days. And we have often heard from the public that they do not have time to consider things. And this is something that needs to go through policy. I have been told that we don't name things or buildings after people, dead or alive. And I'm not saying that that's correct. It's just what I've been told. And so I think that there needs to be more time on this. And I'm not saying that after time and policy is done, that it won't become the Hal Greenwood Revolving Loan Fund. I'm just saying, out of respect for the community and out of transparency, that we do this. The other request that was in was for a community member that had been involved for 30 plus years, great reputation. Don't see any reason why they hadn't been recognized, and we're told no many, many times. And so if we say no to one request, we need to say no to this request and come up with a plan and policy, unless you're ready to say yes to the other request at the same time, which I don't think is fair to Hal to do that. I think that each one should be taken and that there should be a policy so that people understand moving forward how to do this.
Okay, thank you. Just to ask for my understanding and a little more clarity, you're stating that something came to the county board in the past about naming an some kind of facility. Did that come up to a board, county board before?
No, it was constantly stopped before it ever got to a board level. It was told, no, 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 the board doesn't do this. The board doesn't make these decisions. No, we're not doing this. And so it didn't even come to a board level. So I'm sorry that I'm getting a little annoyed, but I'm annoyed that this so quickly came to a board level when the other name change has been talked about for 5 years.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Mills, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, what I was hoping to do is to take a step back and not have this be about any individual or any individual in the past.
Commissioner Mills cannot hear you.
This is about making decisions based on a good process. And if we see areas in our operation where there are deficiencies, such as a lack of a policy, I don't think we should move forward if we identify that deficiency. I think really we should try to fix the deficiency and then move forward. So I would very much rather table this for now than to vote no on it, because that is not the message that I want to send. I want to send the message that this is a very valid and worthwhile request. We just need a way to process it. And without that, I don't think it's fair or equitable.
Okay. Commissioner Starling?
Thank you. So what's your suggestion, Commissioner Mills, as far as process? Do we get a committee going, a policy committee? What would be the next step?
Yeah, I don't have a real clear answer, but I think a policy committee would be in order, and whether that be through general government or a different committee, that's to be determined. But if you just Google, looking for other county naming policies, there are other issues that rise and other considerations that we should probably look at. And so there's probably resources out there to help us navigate this as well.
Okay, go to Administrator Yorkie. I think you're up first, then we'll go to Commissioner Dukirk.
Okay, I was just going to offer, I mean, if it would help the board, I would be willing to work with County Attorney Hicken to investigate best practices around naming public facilities and come forward with a proposal for a policy and procedure to enable this in the future, if that's the board's desire.
Okay, Commissioner Dukirk.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Mills, and it could go through either the general policy or the building committee. And I think Mr. Yorkie has given you a good plan with talking to Molly, because that also is really, really important that we have the county attorney involved. So with that, I make a motion to table.
Okay, we have a motion to table this item. We have support.
Commissioner Mills, support.
Okay, very good. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim is aye. That passes unanimously. So then will be tabled for the future. Some kind of process will be recommended to the board regarding naming rights. Okay, thank you. Good discussion. We'll move on to the big item of the year. Oh, excuse me, we got one more item.
One more.
Request for a revolving loan for the Banadad Trail Association. This comes from, I believe, the revolving loan committee too.
Correct. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. So the committee met and talked to Andrew Jenks of the Banadad Trail Association, and they're requesting a $4,000 loan for a term of 5 years for the purchase of a Polaris Ranger UTV and authorizing the board chair and auditor to sign all revolving loan agreements. So the committee met on December 9th to review this request and voted unanimously to recommend approval, subject to the auditor's review of the association's current financial statements, which I've done, and I think they're well positioned to manage this. Currently, we have another small loan with them for another snowmobile. They have 3 of these in total. And that one is in the 4th year of a 7-year term. So we would combine the 2 loans into one if you approve this. The request is for $4,000. The total cost of the project is $5,000, as the club will put in $1,000 of repair to get that machine up to its best use. So it will last at least the 5-year term. They're asking for a 5-year term for this loan. So the 2 would be combined into that 5-year term. And the interest rate will be set as of the approval of this meeting. By approving this, you help retain the 3 persons that work part-time to keep that trail open and operating for skiers and dog mushers and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments on this loan? We'll entertain a motion in to approve.
Mills,
So moved. Oh, I'll be second.
Okay,
Dave can be first.
Commissioner Mills, motion, support by Commissioner Dukirk, roll call vote. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim, aye, passes unanimously. Okay, now for the big item of the year, the most important decision I think that we make, or at least right at the top. But for financial reasons and tax purposes, it is number 1. So I would like to call on for the final budget and levy, call on our Administrator Yorkie first, and then I'm sure you turn it over to Auditor Powers. James, go ahead. I think you had some comments you would like to make
I do.
get us started on this. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just wanted to remind the public how this process works. It is the responsibility of the administrator's office to work with departments to develop a budget proposal to bring forward to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration and approval. Obviously, I'm the new kid on the block. I've only been here a couple of months, and so I want to recognize that the heavy lifting was done by Rena Rogers and the department heads with great assistance from the Budget Advisory Committee. Over a period of months, Rena worked with the department directors to come up with the budget proposal for 2021. And the charge to the directors was let's keep our expenses as flat as we possibly can, especially with COVID going on and the uncertainties that it creates. I think there was a real interest in trying to keep this budget as constrained as possible. And so I want to recognize the great work that Rena and the directors did to put this budget together, and also thank the members of the Budget Advisory Committee for their efforts in overseeing this. I think it's a very well-considered budget. And I'm looking forward to going through this exercise in full next year. Hopefully the climate next year will have a little more uncertainty. And so we won't be dealing with these big unknowns as we are currently. The other thing that I want to say, and Brady's going to talk about this in a minute, I know that in the past, the levy increase has fluctuated greatly, and that there were a number of years where we had double-digit increases in the levy. And I know the reaction that the community had to that, and it was not good. And understandably so, right? I mean, nobody wants to see taxes going up substantially. And I think my understanding of the history that led to that was that over time we weren't really increasing the levy at a rate that would have prevented us from having to endure these really large increases. And so looking forward as a means of providing more predictability to the organization, to the community, I think it's going to be really important to avoid the temptation to adopting levies that don't account for inflation and the increase in insurance costs and other personnel costs, which really drive the budget. It's tempting as an elected official to say, you know what, we're just going to keep it zero or make it something that's really low. And certainly the taxpayers appreciate that, but it does begin to dig a hole financially for the organization. And I know that's not a situation that any of us wants. And so moving forward, I think it's going to be important for us to ensure that we have long-term financial sustainability as part of the way that we operate. That's going to be my organizing principle in bringing forward future year budgets to you. And I also have tremendous respect for the people in the community who want to see their taxes kept low. And I think there's a lot of work that we can do to make sure that county government operations are as efficient as possible, to make sure that whatever increases we do need to propose are done with quality improvement in mind and making our operations as efficient as they can be. So that's kind of my piece in this. Again, I'm thankful to Rena and our management team for the great work that they've done in developing this budget. And with that, and also again, thanks to the Budget Advisory Committee, you guys have been a great resource for us. I really appreciate that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brady.
Thank you. Auditor Powers.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll echo some of what Administrator Yorkie said. And when you look, I'll go to that later, but when you look at that long period of time that I've just kept track of it, you see these fluctuations. It's not any particular board that had these fluctuations. It's happened with every type of board that we've had. We've had periods where we've held it in line, and then eventually it kind of bursts at the seam, and every board, and the makeups have been greatly different in conservative, more progressive, et cetera, and they all run into the same issue at some point. So it's kind of universal. But back to the basics, what we do have to approve a final levy by the end of December. We approved a proposed levy in September, and that's included in your packet, and that was at a level of $10,798,575. We can reduce that levy, but we cannot increase it, as most of you are aware. I've also included a revision, which just a simple revision. The Highway Department initially was offering a large use of fund balance, $244,000, to help balance the budget. They've since rethought that position, since their departmental fund balance is not at the level that we actually set as a goal for them. And they said, we would like to pull that back and just use the equipment reserves, which they intend to do every year when needed. That's why they save them in order to use them. So it's a slight adjustment from $244,000 to $227,000 of fund balance. And the difference really is shown on here is coming from the contingency we set up for anything that might happen from the time of the proposed levy until the approval. The other change is Human Services made some adjustments to their levy and to their expenses because of their contact tracing and other public health efforts that were going to go into 2021 that we have no other funding source that we're aware of at the moment. So they've increased their use of fund balance from 0 to 44,000, but they've kept their levy the same. So their expenses are up, their use of fund balance is up, but no change to the levy. So that's what we see right now with the same proposed levy. And then now to that county levy history. As you can see, since 1989, you can see the large fluctuations on the left. Then you can see our actual levy through those years, the dollars. At the bottom of that column, you can see the amount of money that we've raised is $165 million. Then looking at the next column, 4.39% is the percent that you would levy each and every year to reach the levy that we are currently at, which comes out roughly $10,800,000. But at a steady levy, we would have collected $194 million. So the fluctuations actually resulted in collecting less levy through those years. What would we have done with that additional levy? Hard to say at this point. They could have been put into maintenance of our infrastructure, lowering the bonding costs, et cetera. The final column there is just another look at this steady levy concept at a 3.5% levy each and every year since 1989 would have raised the same amount of money as we are at today with a slightly lower levy each year, but we would not be at the level that we are today. And we know with the costs that we have today, whether it's payroll or all of the services that we have, we would need a larger levy today. And I think what this points out is this is historical. It's not, it gives you a vision of what's happened, but not necessarily what will happen going forth. But looking at those two columns, I think you would conclude that the levy that we would project going forward is probably somewhere in between those two numbers, depending on the kind of financial management plan we tie it to, the kind of savings that we do for our capital, and how that might affect our bonding, et cetera. The other thing I wanted to point out is just on the bottom, it says, note, 2021 proposed levy is 3.94 times the 1989 levy. I put that in there. This ratio is related to the TNT presentation, where at the TNT it was slightly different because we were only looking out to 2019, because I simply wanted a comparison at TNT of expense, revenue, levy, and fund balance when we had our official fund balance, which was 2019. So it was just a comparison tool. How many times rolled over since 1989 for each of those measures? And that came out to 3.58 then. Now it's 3.94 when you go to 2021. But I just want to point out that that is not, I don't think, a relevant or useful tool as a target levy going forward. I think the steady levy options above are more relevant. You may come with the same number, but they're more relevant to look at in trying to project out to the future. And with that, I will leave it up to any questions that the board might have, and then hopefully a decision today.
Okay, very good. Well, I saw Commissioner Dukirk's hand up, and we'd like to hear from all the commissioners on this for any comments, questions that they may have, and hopefully we'll take action on this today. Commissioner Dukirk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Brady, you like to go 30 years back? I'm gonna go almost 100 years back. My family has been here for 5 generations. I am the 5th generation of my family. My great-great-grandfather, Ralph Nelson, worked for the Cook County Highway Department in the late 20s and early 30s. And many times during my 8 years as commissioner, I've sat down with my grandmother and talked about things and how it's going. And she says it always comes back around and it always works out. But I don't know that my family thought that in the 30s when there was the Great Recession. And during that time, my great-grandfather was paid with a chit from the county, which is basically a promissory note that they brought to the gas stations, the utility companies, the grocery store, and those places honored it from the county and allowed them to put food on their table for a very limited time. And then they said, we cannot do that any longer. We don't trust that the county will have the funds. And my family faced not having food on the table, being a county employee. Obviously, we didn't have good practices back then. Obviously, the Great Recession hurt everybody and hurt the county. And we've had other recessions. We've heard talk of a recession again because of what COVID is doing. We have heard that there is a vaccine, and then we've heard that there's a new strain. So we, this board, all of you have done great work to put the county in a great spot. And I do not want to see us in 5 years or 10 years handing out chits. And we need to stay the course. We need to look at what the average is, and we need to not put our employees, our community members, our community businesses in a difficult place. It's a lot to balance. And so I can wiggle a little bit from 4.16 to have a little bit of relief. I was okay with 3.58 until Brady gave us the updated number of 3.94. But we had our financial advisors come in and work with us years ago, and they said average is 3.5. So I'm open to some fluctuation between 4.16 and 3.5, but we still don't have all the information that we need. And I'm not sure what you meant, Mr. Chairman, by I hope we have a decision today, because we'd have to call a special meeting. We have to have this decided by the end of the year. So I think we have to decide today. So I'm open to the rest of your suggestions, and have at it, kids.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Yes, hopefully we will, but we'll do everything we can to make that decision today, but we've got to get there first. Commissioner Storley.
Thank you, Chairman Bersham. Well, since our TNT, I've spent the last couple weeks looking at my 3-ring binder of all the areas of services that we provide. And I look at all the stats that Brady puts out. And of course, the spread here from 1989. And then the years that I have been commissioner and the ups and downs that we've experienced then. And I'm willing to move a little bit from 4.16. However, I do feel that I wouldn't budge a whole lot. I don't even know if I'd go to 3.5 because we have a lot ahead of us in the county. And I want to make sure that we're covered because we don't know, as Commissioner Dukirk said, we don't know what the next year is going to bring. So I'm a little bit flexible right now.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Mills, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's sounding like we're on similar pages here, which is very encouraging. Yeah, my experience on the board is much shorter, and so I'm really listening with open ears to the members who have more experience with this. One of the concerns I have, I guess, with the current proposed budget is the use of the fund balance with Public Health and Human Services. I don't know how many years it was that Public Health and Human Services was in a really tough spot and had to make some significant adjustments, and it took years just to build up that fund balance. And as Commissioner Storley said, there's a lot ahead of us yet here, and a lot that we don't know. And so absolutely we need to use fund balance when unforeseen costs arise or things that were not planned for. Luckily for us, most, if not all, of the unforeseen costs thus far with COVID have been covered with the CARES Act money. And, that's running out. And so moving forward, we need to be prepared as a community to deal with and respond to the challenges that COVID is presenting us in the best ways that we can, and contact tracing is one of those. We as a county and community are really exceptional in how we've responded to that and how successful we've been in large part. It's because of the support that the Board of Commissioners has given to public health. So I don't know that it's responsible of us to plan on using fund balance for something that we see coming. Not to mention the things we don't see coming. I guess I'm not literally asking commissioners, but this is rhetorically asking just how everyone's mental health is doing, how the mental health of the close members of their family or friends are doing, and think about the mental health of people who are otherwise normally struggling, and what kind of impacts that our services have on those individuals, what kind of preventative services we provide, and also what kind of services we need to provide when things aren't working out, much like out-of-home placement. I know that Public Health and Human Services has done a remarkable job at preventing out-of-home placements, if at all possible, but we know that the trauma felt through this pandemic could very well lead to more of those, and that's a significant cost that the county has struggled to budget for, because you can't guess that. And so I would rather err on the safe side and not hit the fund balance with Public Health and Human Services, but I think we can still pull back a little bit of the contingencies, and so as far as a specific percentage is concerned, I'm in agreement with both Commissioner Dukirk and Commissioner Storley that we should certainly not go below the average. We could possibly bring it down from our initial levy, but I don't see us moving too much further below that.
Have you, Commissioner Mills, are you, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Is that the end of your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have to say
Okay.
for the moment. I'm hoping discussion continues.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Starley, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. So my question to Brady is, if we bring it down to 3.94, does it really make that much difference?
Dollar wise,
Right.
3.94. Let me see. That's about $23,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll comment. I haven't yet. I mentioned previously issues about fund balance, and our fund balance has gone up to over 90%, and that's good. I think if I were continuing as a commissioner, I would be looking at this a little bit more in a long-term situation, going forward at least 4 years. And I think the arguments that I hear for keeping the levy higher are very valid. But I also think that sometimes fund balances can be used temporarily in certain situations. That's just the experience I've had. But I really am going to be respectful to especially the commission, all the commissioners, Heidi, Commissioner Dukirk as well, but myself leaving this, I'm going to be very supportive of what you people come up with. Unless you go, you know, I really say that in good conscience, and you're living with this, and but also Commissioner Dukirk, your thoughts are important too because of your 8 years of experience and connection in the county. So, but so I don't have any magic number. I think, or a recommendation. I think I would have one if I was continuing, but I'm not going to share that, and because it's rather. You know, I think the most important thing is that you people need to work with this in the future. I don't mind paying taxes at all. That's for sure. Commissioner Dukirk.
Wow. All the long, hard meetings we had to get us turned around, and it's still hard. We're still struggling. Ginny, I love the smile because you know what it is. We thought this would be so easy after we got straightened out. So, and 23,000, wow, that's just a little number going down from 4.16. And Dave, you've got your hand up. I was going to throw out a motion, but I'll let you go.
Commissioner Mills.
I guess what I was wondering about the 3.94. Well, I guess I should ask more about the number I'm wondering about, Brady. What would our levy percentage be? I know this is your favorite part, Brady, where we just start throwing numbers at you to ask for quick calculations. But what would the levy be if we took that 40 the public health portion of the fund balance and used contingency to cover that?
Yeah, the levy would be, 10,753,000. The percentage would be 3.7273.
I'm sorry.
Could you hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You said 3.72.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my mistake. I'm sorry. 4.59 if we added it to the levy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I see as clearly we can't go above 4.16, but that's what I see as if we were going to be, the number that we would be looking at if we were going to be covering that that fund balance use. So that gives another perspective of what our needs are, but I think we can knock our contingency down. Heidi, I don't know that we need a motion. Or Mr. Chair, if I may, I was going to suggest that we don't need a motion to talk numbers. We can discuss various percentages and try to really figure this out without motions, if that's okay.
Yes, I think so. As long as someone does not state it as a motion, we can talk about numbers. Yes, in fact, that's a very good idea. But if someone makes a motion, then we're going down a different path. So good point. Okay, anything else to add, Commissioner Mills, or should we open it up for more discussion?
Yeah, that was the only suggestion I was going to have, is if we could discuss some more about the various percentages and what that means. Thank you. I'm done for now.
Okay, Commissioner Dukert, you had your hand up, so I'll turn it to you if you would like to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Mills, we have a decent contingency, which we haven't had the luxury of having in the past. And we do have good fund balances. So I'd rather not look at 4.59. Myron is correct. We have a really good fund balance. So I'd like you all to see how you feel about 3.95.
Okay, any other comments or questions on 3.95? Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, I agree, and I recognize. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say 4.59. I was going through mental exercises trying to look at our parameters and needs and all that stuff. But yes, our fund balance is very healthy. My biggest concern was taking away from that healthy fund balance. I think with our healthy contingency, I would be comfortable with 3.95. I am very much interested in other commissioners. I think Commissioner Storley had mentioned the 3.94, so seems very similar there. But for my 2 cents, I am comfortable with the 3.95.
Okay, Commissioner Storley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I did say 3.94. I'll go to 5. I would be comfortable with that. Fund balance is best it's been in years, and I think we can manage with that percentage. You and I.
Okay. Well,
Plus.
I think I'm supportive, as I said before, about what comes up from this group. But I could finalize that now and say that 3.95 is very reasonable, considering all the factors. So I'll open it up. Any more comments? Commissioner Dukirk?
Motion to set the levy at 3.95.
Okay, we have a motion to set the levy at 3.95. Is there support?
Charlie, support.
Okay, Commissioner Stark, thank you for support. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersham, aye. We have the final levy for 2021 for 3.95. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think this is the first time in many, many years that we have all four of us in agreement. We should
Good.
recognize that. And I know that Bobby is watching and he really wanted it at 3, but Bobby, we stayed under 4.
Okay. Yeah, well, there are different ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
Good work. Thank you, Auditor Powers. Thanks to the advisory committee. I think we did some good work this year, and I certainly have enjoyed serving on that committee for the last 4 years. And thanks for your comments, Administrator Yorkie. I think how we're going to go forward with this, and you'll be carrying the ball. So wish you the best with that. Okay, we'll go to Administrator part of the agenda. We do need to approve the receipt of $256,250 from the state of Minnesota. Administrator Yorkie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're probably aware that the state legislature Monday last week approved a COVID relief package that includes assistance to businesses and also extends unemployment benefits for folks who have been affected by decreases in business related to the COVID-19 restrictions. Part of that funding package includes money that is being allocated to counties for distribution to the business community. As a smaller county, Cook County qualifies for the minimum allocation of $256,250. When I first heard about this, I was praying that we would be able to enlist the assistance of the EDA and also the Chamber of Commerce. As you're well aware, Mary Somnus, Pat Campanero, and Jim Boyd were instrumental in enabling the county to distribute funding to the business community under the CARES legislation that was passed last year by Congress. And they did an excellent job. It was a lot of work. There were several rounds of grant funding. And so I wasn't totally optimistic that the team would be willing to take another go at it. But thankfully, I can report that Mary, Pat, and Jim are on board with helping us get this new funding from the state out to the business community. So that's great news. The parameters of the grant program, the next grant cycle that we're doing with this money, are not entirely clear. I will say that the legislature was purposely sort of vague in terms of what counties needed to do or what requirements would be needed for businesses to qualify for this funding. And that was intentional. They wanted counties to have flexibility in determining how best to use these dollars. So that's a good thing. The only requirement is businesses need to be located in Cook County, and they also need not to have any liens against them from the Secretary of State's office. So beyond those general requirements, we have latitude to determine, for example, what the maximum award amount would be, and also other qualification parameters. There is a pot of funding in the state bill that will go to businesses that have seen their business drop off by 30% compared to a comparable period in 2019. And so there's a question as to, should we use these county dollars to award businesses that already qualify for that first pot of funding? We haven't really had that conversation in detail yet. But the goal will be to allocate these dollars in a way that is equitable and that has the maximum impact to the community. So that's what we're looking at. The other thing to mention is that these funds need to be awarded by March 15th, and there was a typo in your agenda packet. It should be March 15th, 2021. So that's kind of the general outlines of this program. Your approval to receive the fundings today will enable us to move forward with our partners at the EDA and Chamber to start determining the parameters of this grant program so that we can start getting that money out into the community as quickly as possible. I should also mention I was on a call of the Minnesota Association of County Administrators on Friday. And the big question was, how soon will the state get this money to the counties? And that is not known at this point. But we know it's coming, and we do want to position ourselves to again, get those resources out to the business community as quickly as possible. One thing I neglected to mention is that nonprofits also are eligible to apply for these. So that's kind of the general outline of the program. And with that, I will take questions.
Okay, well, thanks for your work on that. And any questions before we take action on this or comments? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the receipt of $256,250 from the state of Minnesota for the COVID distribution for profits and nonprofits in our county.
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Dukirk, thank you. Support?
Storley, support.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Starley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim, ayes. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Any other updates, Administrator Yorkie?
I have just a few other items. So I wanted to make you aware that after the public comment period of this meeting, I received an email from former 1st District Commissioner and now Chair of the Grand Portage Tribal Council, Bobby DeShaw. He wanted to send his regards to outgoing Commissioners Dukirk and Chairman Bersheim. He said it was a pleasure to work with you and he wishes you all the best in the future. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby, for your comments. The next thing I wanted to mention is that I did send out an email to all staff requesting that folks who are traveling for the holiday take steps to quarantine upon their return to Cook County. Obviously the best practice is not to travel if you don't have to, but some of us do have to. And so we just wanted to make sure that we had recommendations in place so that people could isolate themselves, or rather quarantine themselves. I have to make sure I'm using the correct language when they return to Cook County, so that if they are exposed during their travels, that they don't spread the virus into the community. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, I just wanted to update you on the process to hire a public information coordinator. That's a position that you all approved a few meetings ago. We have moved forward with recruitment, and we have received 5 resumes. 4 of the candidates met our minimum criteria, so we're going to be setting interviews with those candidates. And we do have a meeting this afternoon with Kimber Ralstad at the hospital to talk about coordination on the interview process. So again, I just want to thank Kimber and the hospital board for their willingness to work with us to fund this position. I think it's going to be a great thing for the community. And you all were heaping praise upon Grace Granager earlier in this meeting, which is so well deserved. She has been burning the candle at both ends to keep our community safe. And this position will take some of the burden off her shoulders and enable us to do our outreach that we need to regarding COVID-19, so the community stays healthy. So that's really all I had for now, and thanks for your attention.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to employee concerns, commissioner concerns. First item is commissioner reports. Any commissioner reports at this time? Okay. Any meetings to update other than those noted? Okay. Any correspondence or memos? I think you did give those to us, Administrator Yorkie. So then we'll have recognition of staff. Go ahead, Administrator Yorkie. I heard you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I did want to mention our organizational meeting will be taking place January 5th of next year.
Okay.
And I'm working on, we do have a list of all the committees that the commissioners will need to determine or make assignments for. And what I'm trying to do is whittle that down into a format that is easier to digest mentally. It's a very extensive list. We have a lot of committees, and I know that organizational meeting tends to be a very long one. And so I'm trying to provide information in a way that will help streamline that discussion. And I'll also be sharing that information with the incoming commissioners prior to that meeting.
Okay, thank you. We have resignation for Caitlin Linnell with regrets, and we have new hire, well, Andriana Reeson for the auditor's office. And then I'll turn it over to Commissioner Stortley, I believe, who's going to give some recognition.
Thank you, Chairman Bergheim. Well, as we can look at our list here, we see that it's most unusual, really, that we have 3 commissioners that will no longer be with us. And so I just wanted to take a little bit of time to have a little chat about kind of reviewing our working together and being a team over the last 8 years, 4 years, 2 years. Well, not 2 years, but you know, the first name on the list here is Commissioner Dukirk. And so Heidi, I was reflecting the other day about when I first came on board, all the things that you were involved in from the get-go, from the why, and the whole thing of you watching that develop into what it is now with all the members and all the people that are involved in that. It really, for our community, it's totally awesome. It really is. And thinking about the other kind of interesting things you would have experienced with rumble strips and invasive species up your way on the Gunflint Trail. And you know, I think one of the things that was really great that you started, it was limited, but you did start that conversation coffee with Commissioner Dukirk at the co-op. And, you know, I think we all look for ways to meet our constituents in our different districts. And I thought that was a great way to begin conversations. And then I was thinking all the car rides we had and going to AMC and all the different district meetings. And one thing I always remember, because AMC is like this huge, big conference room where you go in to have breakfast and your meal and everything. And I'd go in there and it's like, I wonder where the commissioners are, where's our table? And I would look and say, there's Heidi. I can tell by the color of the day hair. So you're very colorful, Heidi. We'll miss that. So I'll just turn it over to anybody else that'd like to comment on that. And Commissioner Dukirk.
Yeah, I'll go next if I could. Heidi, one of the things that I go back to and realize is as I ran for commissioner, you sat with me, welcomed me at a table up at Gunflint Lodge for dinner and shared with me your experiences as a commissioner, and really valued that. And I think that's really, you know, something that you really do. You reach out and work with people. You're very accessible. And sometimes we haven't agreed, but I've always respected your viewpoint. And you've done so much, and I hope you'll continue to do so, especially with Health and Human Services. And hopefully someday we'll deal more with the human rights issues that you worked hard on. So I really want to thank you for your service as a citizen. And I really, it's been a good experience. I've learned a lot from you, and thank you. Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to recognize Commissioner Dukirk for her inspiration first and foremost. We as we've mentioned in the past numerous times, we attended the Blind and Leadership training together, and I got to sit right next to her, and had the education of Heidi fast track there with various food needs or beverage needs, and or comments on the side or what have you, and it was really great to get to know you, Heidi, at that interaction as you were a new commissioner, I believe, at that time, and it was before I had ran for office for the city council, and then we had that foundation when I was elected as county commissioner, and I also want to just thank you for your leadership during that time. You had made many connections and really internalized a lot of different processes and could help me learn the different ways to navigate and where, how, who, and both at AMC conferences as well as just our regular county board meetings. I just really appreciate the perspective that you bring. It's really important that we as commissioners can see as many different perspectives as possible, and your perspective is certainly unique from mine, and I greatly value that and will into the future. So I know you're not going anywhere aside from off the county board, and so I'll still be giving you phone calls asking for advice, and just the impact that you've had, that was just on me, let alone on our organization. It's been tremendous with all the incredible challenges that our organization has gone through during your, just whether it be different department heads or fund balances that are really struggling, and just your steadfastness to what is best for our community. We would not be in the position that we're now without you being at the table there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Myron, I knew you a few years before you decided that you wanted to run for commissioner, but I got to know you really well as you became part of the commissioner board, and many discussions of how things were done and so forth. But you could reflect on your past background in your education background, and that was very important for me to understand a different perspective coming from education that you did to bring it to the county situation, and the times that we've discussed things at district meetings or AMC has been most encouraging, and I appreciate your support as you were chair and I was vice chair and all of that. So it's always a time to reflect on our friendships and to thank you for what you have done both as a commissioner and in the community, and as you move forward, hopefully you will be still part of the community too. I know you will.
Thank you. Commissioner Dukirk.
Thank you, Myron, for your service. and your service to the community outside of being a commissioner. You too give a lot of your time and energy to the community. I don't know if many people know that Myron is a musician, and he has contributed his musical talents to different events. And so we all give to the community in different ways. And it doesn't matter how big or small you give. I know that your heart is very big, Myron, and that you care very much about this community. And you have served us well as the chair in the last year over COVID. I'm sure that you had lots of unexpected meetings and duties that you never thought you would have in your position. So thank you for your time and for your energy and for your consideration into this board and your many, many years of experience that you brought. I'm confident that Ann Sullivan will step into some of that. You both worked for the same school district, so that'll be interesting to see that go forward. Don't fear, Myron. Someone will carry on your flame for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heidi. Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm reflecting just back on the first, I guess I didn't meet you, but I heard you. You had a reputation for singing on mountaintops as I was paddling in when I worked for the Forest Service, and it was a wonderful thing to experience, and that was my first glimpse of a sort of you, and it was very memorable. But our first experiences, I think, were on the Y Council, and I was representing the city there, and you were not yet running for the commissioner seat, but had discussed it during some of those meetings, just kind of feeling things out and see what we thought of it. And boy, I really appreciate your leadership and the decisions that you've made, and the sacrifices that you've made. It's certainly not an easy job, and you do make it look pretty easy. And yeah, being able to reference your experiences really helps me gain perspective, and I hope that I'm still welcome to tap into that when needs arise, and look forward to seeing you more in the community, and being able to talk more openly. I guess sometimes us as commissioners really have to limit how much discussion we have outside of meetings, because we don't want to break the rules. And I'm hoping that that barrier will help us move forward as a board too. But thank you for your service and your leadership, and you inspire me as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Administrator Yorkie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I obviously have not been here that long, but in the time that I have worked with both of you, I've really come to appreciate your leadership. It's really a privilege to work with people who appreciate and understand the power of local government, county government, to improve the lives of residents. And it's a privilege to be able to do that work. And I've really enjoyed working with both of you. You both bring a passion for public service that is so important, and we're going to miss that, which is not to say that the new commissioners won't share that passion, but I really appreciate the energy that you've brought to the work that we do together, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And we have Bobby Deschamps included in the list here. We did recognize him when he left in August, and wished him, and still wish him, the best in his leadership as tribal chairman. So I guess I would end this by saying that after the first of the year, whenever Administrator Yorkie has time, he will be visiting each one of you with a token of appreciation and recognition of your time as county commissioner. Otherwise, we would have done it today had we all been together, but that's not possible. So he will meet with each one of you later.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I think I get to conclude the meeting. And I just would like to say thanks to the commissioners and to the staff. Wow, what a year. What a year. It's just, but you know, the article in Minneapolis Tribune, I think says a lot for you folks too. And Grace deserves a lot of leadership recognition, but boy, did we handle this pandemic well. It's very, very moving, and I think gratifying that we could really step up for the public good and not play partisan politics.
Right.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Do we have support?
Myron, I think it should be you. Your
Okay,
last
good.
chance.
I support. Thank you. Roll call vote. Commissioner Bersheim, A. Yay. Commissioner Storley,
Aye.
Commissioner Mills,
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Woo woo!
Okay. Well, happy holidays to everyone, and best wishes for the new year. And we can see the end of the light at the tunnel, but let's do our part to make sure we get there by looking at public safety and treating people with kindness and respect, and just care for each other. With that,
Amen to that.